Welcome to the Best Business Podcast, the podcast for established marketers, entrepreneurs, and CEOs, the ones who want to join me in my mission to create 200 new multimillionaires who solve world problems with entrepreneurship. If that's you, then this podcast was created to give you access to the tools, training, strategies, and tactics you need to achieve multiple seven-figure profits as soon as possible. This world needs the best business you can build, so please get ready, open your mind, believe you can do this, and let's build a better world together for future generations. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we are joined by employee engagement expert and strategist Lisa Ryan. Lisa helps organizations develop employee engagement initiatives and strategies that keep their top talent and best clients from becoming someone else's. She's an award-winning speaker and best-selling author of 8 books. Her focus is on strengthening workplace culture, improving employee engagement, and initiating gratitude strategies, Grategies, for personal and professional transformation. Lisa's down-to-earth approach and willingness to share best practices have proven to be a winning formula for her national and international audiences. She holds an MBA and currently serves as president of the National Speakers Association Ohio chapter. I've asked her to join us today to talk about team building, keeping our best clients, and careers in professional speaking. So, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time today. How are you doing?
I am doing just fantastic, thanks.
What? Lisa, it's your birthday. we just went through that before the call. Anyways, everyone's seen The Simpsons. They know what I'm talking about. So, Lisa, obviously you've accomplished a lot. You're a role model for a lot of women. You are a leader, you're a mover and a shaker, and you're also really focused on deepening relationship roots, I think, and building and have a long-term point of view to things. But you weren't always like this, I imagine. You didn't always have 8 books. You weren't always president of the National Speakers Association. So how did you even first get started? Did you come from an entrepreneurial family? Did you have a business as a kid and a teenager? Kind of where'd you come from? How'd this happen?
Boy, that's kind of funny. I have been basically selling my whole life. That's so funny that you asked because I really hadn't thought about it. When I was 4 years old, I was helping the neighborhood kid with his paper route, getting into being 5 and 6 with brownies and Girl Scouts and cookies. And I remember doing readathons and walkathons and all these things that we did. And I remember thinking that, I'd be really good in sales, but I would never do that because it's just an ulcer job. So I went into corporate America. And I was in corporate America for a long time, making great money, making a great salary. And then I decided that it was time to go into sales. And I remember I told my dad, because it was my first job as an executive recruiter. It was a draw against commission, straight commission position. And I told my father, and he was just, what do you think you're doing? That's feast or famine. Why would you want to go into sales? And there was so much fear around that. And so it took me a while longer to build my sales career. And then after 20 years of doing that, the light bulb kind of went on, and it's like, corporate America's not where I want to be. And they kind of helped it by eliminating my position via group conference call with 12 of us getting canned at the same time.
Wow.
That made the decision, but my company was born on that day, October 12th, 2010, and I have never looked back.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. Good for you. And sometimes you need a forcing function in your life to push you. If your hands are full, they're not open to receive something new. And it can be really scary, that's for sure. Now, I love what you mentioned, though, because we talked about sales, and I kind of want to talk about this for a minute because for a lot of people listening, they're in a business, they're in a sales or marketing position, and I think a lot of us have or have to overcome this. I don't know where it comes from, but actually I know where it comes from, but this mentality that sales are bad or sales are, you know what I mean? It's scary, it's hard, and it's a grind. Can you speak to that at all? What have you learned in your years?
You know what? I have always been very proud of my profession, being in sales. And even though I'm an entrepreneur and I have a full-time speaking business, I am still in sales every single day. I was at an event last night and I was talking to an attorney, And she said something derogatory about sales because she asked me what my career was, and I told her sales. And, I forget what the comment was, a little bit flippant. And I looked at her, I said, "You're in sales too."
Mm-hmm.
And she paused for a minute. I said, "How are you getting clients?" And then she looked at me. She said, "Actually, my job is to sell the jury and the judge to my client's point of view." And I said, "Right there, it's sales. It's a very proud profession." And I know that there's certain, aspects of it, used car salesmen and stuff, that almost become a cartoon in themselves. But if you look at the fact that we're all in sales, I mean, if you're married, you had to sell your spouse that you were the ideal partner.
That's right. That's right. We're constantly selling. And, I mentioned it in your bio there, but, you sell to get a client. You have to keep selling that client. You have to keep selling that client to stay in the relationship. Everything is sales. Sales is a very noble profession because it's not, I think it gets a bad rap from people who don't know how to do it. We just talked about earlier how I'd launched a beta program, and I just put one post on Facebook, and within 30 minutes I had 2 people that had paid, and I've been bombarded by leads, and that's sales. But it wasn't, I'm not trying to force something on someone that they don't want. It really is, sales really is just about helping. And I made a joke about this guy Eeyore that I've been calling, but because he has a mental hurdle he has to overcome, and that's sales. Talking to him, I can't force anyone to do anything, right? But leading them to something that will help them. If someone is suffering from arthritis and you have the pain medicine or something that can cure arthritis, there's nothing wrong. Like you really should. Anyone that's listening to this that feels that they get stuck in that respect, I think what you said before is important. That you're so proud of what you do. I think that's so important that you have a pride in what you do, because then you can be an evangelist for it. And then you don't mind if people don't get it. That's fine. And you're like, whatever, okay. But I know this is the best thing since sliced bread. And then you don't have any qualms about trying to convince someone that they should benefit it from, because really, if your product or service delivers what it says it should, then you should have no guilt about trying to get people to do it if they have the problem that your business solves. A dentist would never feel guilty about collecting money from someone so we can do some work on their tooth so it can stop the pain. A doctor's never going to feel guilty about taking money from you so they can reset your broken arm so you can go back to it'll heal and you can go back to work, like that sort of thing. And I think it's got a bad rap from people that either did it wrong or took advantage of people. I think that's probably it more than anything else.
Right. And it's the willingness to be able to walk away. I mean, just like we were talking about with Eeyore, he either makes the decision to come on board, or you're willing to walk away, and then you're not getting into that ethics, because 6 months later Eeyore coming back and say, "Well, you forced me to do this."
Yeah,
Dude,
no.
I did nothing like that. It
Yeah.
was your choice. These are the benefits that I'm providing to you, and if you don't want them, I don't have to give them to you. If you're willing to walk away because you know that what you're offering is a benefit to that person's life. And if it's not a benefit, you shouldn't be offering it.
Sure. Yeah, I agree 1,000%. So what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had since stepping out and coming into doing your own business, since that day you launched? October, what was it? October something?
October 12th, 2010.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome? And congratulations, by the way. I mean, they say most of the businesses don't last 3 to 5 years. You've obviously squashed that goal like nothing. So.
Right. You know what? I think that getting into the habit of knowing that you're not doing this alone. I very early on enrolled the help of working with coaches. I took training programs. I invested a lot. I think that if the decision hadn't been made for me, the one thing that I tell people is, please don't quit your day job to become an entrepreneur unless you have quite a bit of money set aside, because we look at it, and actually I just ran into it yesterday at this event I was speaking at. A woman came up and she was asking me all about speaking. She was all excited, wanted to do what I did, and I just had a feeling that she thought that because it looked like speaking was a free business, that it would be really easy, because obviously there's a very low barrier to entry. You can speak
That's right.
and you can get in front of a group, but it's making a living from that. And when I started to share some of the things that I've done, being a professional member of the National Speakers Association, the dues I pay for that, the dues I pay for the chapter, that alone was enough to blow her out of the water.
Right.
But I know by the investments that I made in myself, I have cut my learning curve by years.
Right.
Because it's not my experience. I'm learning from the experience of others, which is the very best experience to have.
Right. They say the pioneers get the arrows and the settlers get the land. That's why I love books, and I'm just like you. I've honestly spent over $70,000 on my own coaching, training, seminars, workshops, mastermind, like you name it, books. I buy books like it's free candy. Like I get probably 1 to 2 books a week, and I don't know when I'm going to find the time to read them all, but the book you don't own, you can't read, and the book you don't read can't help you. And I love that because like I mentioned before, I've got my cousins living with me right now. They need somewhere to stay, and I've told them, I'm like, guys, one book can change your life. Like you don't have to spend 40 years figuring out how to accomplish X. You can just get the book someone wrote after doing it for 40 years and start from where they left off. It's that simple. Like it's actually that simple. Like just pick up the book, read it, and then go. Oh, you still have questions? Well, let's get you in a course or a program. Oh, you need more hand holding? You're really unclear. This is really important to you? Well, then let's get you a one-on-one coach. Let's get you in a mastermind program. You know what I mean? So I think that's really, really good feedback, and I hope people listening understand that. Of course, you have to vet the people that you're going to work with, but you may have to do it yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. I think that's a fantastic point.
Absolutely.
Any other major challenges you felt you had to overcome?
When you're an entrepreneur, people who are 9-to-5ers don't get it. So when you are leaving behind friends and family, because the thing is, you share an idea, I'm going to do this, and you're all excited. Oh, that'll never work. Oh, how can you do that? Oh, my friend had a business and they failed at it. And you really need to be comfortable leaving people behind who no longer fit with where you want to go. I'm very future directed, and I'm not saying to cut people totally out of your life, but realize that you need to look ahead to where you want to be, where you're going, and find people that are already doing that and start to build relationships with them. And this also doesn't happen overnight, because I know that when I first started my speaking business and it was really taking off and I was showing a lot of success, I had a lot of people that wanted to sit down with me over a cup of coffee and learn everything that I did to become this, famous speaker, blah, blah, blah. And I'd sit down and, share with them exactly what I was doing. And I would notice their eyes were starting to glaze over.
Yeah.
And I knew, oh my goodness, this is a total waste of breath. This person will do nothing.
Yep.
So it's frustrating from that standpoint because there's no easy button. The only easy button there is like sold at Staples.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah. They actually do have the easy button. You can go buy an easy button at Staples.
Yeah, and I have one. Yeah. And then
I love that you mentioned that too. Like that, it's actually a huge pain point for me. I actually insist on people paying now. Like if someone says they want to buy me lunch, I'll go, tell you what, this is my hourly rate. Why don't you pay that and I'll buy you lunch? Because I find that by giving people free information, they don't value it because there's no investment. I've had clients pay me for information that was like a couple $1,000s for them, and they went and implemented it and got 10, 20, 50, $100,000+. And I've given the same. I actually remember a specific day I gave a tip to a client that was paying me on one of our coaching calls, and then afterwards I went to a restaurant and I gave the owner the exact same tip. And he just brushed it off. He's like, yeah, I don't know, and that client that I had, they literally turned that around into $7,000 within 30 days. And it was like, what's the difference? And it was the commitment. And I totally get what you mean. They want to see it, but then when they understand the work that goes into it, their eyes glaze over it, which is, I think, and why it's important that you do what you love, right? Because you have to it takes work. You have to be invested in what you're doing.
Right. And I've switched a lot of that to when somebody reaches out to me, because again, I don't want to be rude, but I'll say, let's schedule a short phone conversation, come up with the questions that you have. And I put a disclaimer on it. Don't ask me any question that you don't really want the answer to, because some people do that. They want affirmation. They don't want the truth.
Right.
And every once in a while, I have somebody that, that I sit down with and I tell her what to do, and she does everything. And I tell you, the one person out of all the, I don't know how many that I've done this with, did everything, and now she's become one of my closest friends. We're accountability partners. But the thing is, and we talk literally every Monday. But the thing that she did different is she wasn't asking Lisa, gimme, 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 gimme. She took the list. She started implementing it. She said, oh, I did this and I did this. And I saw that she was working towards it. So then, I'm helping her more and she's giving back. And it's a two-way street, because even though I'm at a different level than her, she sees things in a different way. Or I'll run something by her and she'll give me her opinion, and she gets it. And she's a person that, is just as likely to celebrate with me. She doesn't get mad. She doesn't get jealous because, I closed a big deal and she's not there yet. But by the same token, on the days where I need to be talked off the ledge, she's there for that too. And sometimes with very colorful language.
Right. But you need that, right? I love what you said about having to disassociate, because that's so true. If you had to think, like, you maybe grew up with a group of friends, and you never, grew up same town. I mean, my younger adopted brother's a great example. He's a great guy. He grew up same town, same mom and dad, same house, same circle of friends, same hobbies, same neighborhood. But the reality is he's kind of been struggling lately, and I've watched him. So he's into 10-pin bowling. My whole adopted family is really into 10-pin bowling, and they're really into 10-pin bowling and golfing. That's like their thing. Anyway, I'm not so into it, but it's fine. We have like a flow. It all works. But one of the things I've noticed for him is in the last 3 years, his friends have changed. They've all changed, and he's driving to other cities to hang out with other people now, because he's really trying to make it as a professional bowler. He's tried out for Team Canada a couple times. He's been doing it since he's 2 years old. He can he's got 20-something years of experience in it. He's good. He's bowled like a perfect game 300 like 7 or 12 times. It's like ridiculous.
Wow.
He just did it last fall like three times in 1 month. Like, he bowls like 3 or 4 nights a week. So it's like he's on it, but it's the same thing. If you're trying to make it to the Olympics, if you want to be an Olympian judo fighter or a cross-country skier, you're not going to get there hanging out with your buddies, smoking dope, playing video games, right? Like, you have to change. You are the average of the people you spend your time with. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's not that you're better. It's not that those people are useless or anything. It's just that you need to be in an environment that's optimized for accomplishing X. Like, that's almost something I think that's a real key for people, is you have to find something that you do that really resonates with your existence and your being, because you need to align your life to that more and more and more. I mean, I think that's probably the best way to get work-life balance. The best way to get work-life balance is to pick work that's more like play to you. And that way, when you do it, you're just having fun doing it at the same time, and you don't necessarily know till you go out and try a bunch of things. That's the other part. So I just thought that was a really good tip, and it might seem like a little bit, but I wanted to expand on it, because I think for a lot of the listeners, they might hear that and it might just kind of go in one ear and out the other. And I think it's really important that you guys understand that you have to love what you do, or find a way to do what you love and delegate the rest. And like you were saying, Lisa, you have to surround yourself with people that can get you where you want to go. You won't have the same friends. If you are making, $30,000 a year now, and you have, your life changes, you figure out this vein, your business explodes, you start selling all this stuff, and you start having a $3 million business or a $30 million business, you won't have the same friends that you had when you, right, at the bottom. And it's not because of anything other than that your friends just won't be able to resonate with you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they say, when a mind once stretched never returns to its original shape. The problems you will face, the challenges you will, and the perspective you will have on things will change your ability to connect with those people, and you'll just hang out with different people because you want to be people like you and understood, and people that are going through what you're going through, and so it can be a limiting factor if you don't put yourself in those scenarios. So great tip.
Well, and it's also the point that when you do close that deal that's 30 million or 300 million or whatever it is, the people who weren't there when you were starving, they're going to look at you, oh, that's just because he got lucky. She got lucky. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I worked really hard to get this lucky. And I remember when I was in sales, the years that I was absolutely starving. I failed miserably at my first couple sales positions, and all of my friends were getting new cars and doing all this. And I mean, I'm literally, thanking goodness I wasn't eating cat food. It was that bad.
Right.
And then when my sales career took off, when I started making a lot of money and reaching that level of success, it was that they never quote unquote remembered what I went through. Oh, you just got lucky. Oh, well, you got that medical sales position because you were lucky. No.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. I went to college for 14 years to get an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
None of this comes overnight. There's no such thing as an overnight success. Most people who are seen as overnight success, it took them 20 years to do that.
Yep. And the thing that I want to also put in there is that, again, if you love what you do, you enjoy the journey. And we talk about like landing these big deals, and it's great when you get like a 50,000 or 150,000 or whatever, 7-figure contract signed. That's a phenomenal thing. But you make money along the way. You have ups and downs. That's the entrepreneurial journey, right? So, and the other thing that I tend to notice, I've talked to a few of my friends, and we feel like, except for maybe a couple of resets, people that I know that maybe weren't so smart with the money that they made, you don't really make less money. Like once you learn how to live and get to your income to a certain level, you don't really make, depending on how your money's made, and again, and depending on what you do with it. But I think generally, in general terms, if you're like a carpenter and you start making, go from making 30,000 to 70,000, you're never going to be a $30,000 carpenter again because you know how to, right? So it's a ladder to climb, as far as if you're in an industry and the people at the bottom rung make 30,000 a year and the people at the top rung make 300,000, climb that ladder and enjoy the journey and just be smart. And I think a huge tip, especially for entrepreneurs, never spend more than 70 cents of every dollar you make. Never spend more than 70 cents of every dollar you make, because you never know when you're going to need to have some sort of cushion. You never know when you're going to get hit with a huge tax bill. You never know when a lawsuit's going to come out of nowhere. You never know when you're going to need to invest in some sort of massive piece of equipment that you have no real need for other than now it's government legislation that you own it. Like, you just never know when that stuff's going to happen. And if you're constantly maxed out or overboard, I've been preaching this for a couple of years now. I'm actually becoming more vocal about it. Never spend more than 70 cents of every dollar you make, and try to get ahead on all your bills. Try to get a month ahead on your cell phone bill, on your rent, on your car payments, on whatever. Try to get 30 days ahead if you can. Squeeze yourself intentionally 1 month so you got room to breathe in case, and something hits the fan. You just, I'm not paying bills this month. Because then all of a sudden it's just a night, same money, just spent differently.
Right. And that's the thing to really keep in mind, particularly at the beginning of an entrepreneurial journey, is that it is total ups and downs. You'll have a rockin' month or a couple rockin' months in a row, which is actually very dangerous at the beginning of a career because you think that that's going to continue.
Yes.
And then you get that cold slap of reality that, oh no, where did all the money go? I spent it. I really love that 70 cents on every dollar. I was at a seminar last weekend and the gentleman said something, how many pennies are left, at the end of each dollar. So it's the same type of thing of just really putting in terms of pennies, because that's what it is. I'm saving 30 pennies for every dollar that comes in. You put it aside and then you have that cushion because at some point you will need it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. Great tip, great advice. I honestly think people listening to this, especially if you're in startup mode, you may want to go back and re-listen to it again and take notes, just because there's a lot of nuggets in here. And maybe you feel like you've got it, so okay, obviously the call's going to keep moving forward. But it's small hinges that swing big doors. Like, it's these little things. Like, it's not a big deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're living on whatever amount now and you make more than that next month, it's not really a big deal to make sure that you put 30% aside, right? Like, again, it's just a little thing. It's just a little step, and it can make the huge difference. Now, Lisa, do you ever feel that anything was ever holding you back in your career that ever prevented you from stepping up and leveling up? Because you've probably leveled up a few times, obviously, from when you first started.
I've always been really determined to move forward. So like we talked about earlier, I've always made a lot of investments in myself. I think the fact that because I'm very future directed, I'm always I get distracted by shiny objects. Ooh, that's pretty. Let's do that. Ooh, that's pretty. Let's do that. So sometimes being a little bit more focused and, getting one task done before beginning the next one. I have found that when I get off focus, when something else happens, and sometimes you just make decisions, life decisions. For example, today was supposed to be a day that I was supposed to be on the phone all day today. I have a bunch of follow-up calls. I had the meeting with you. I had another meeting earlier. But you know what? My great niece was born yesterday, and I wanted to see this precious little girl before she was 24 hours old.
Mm-hmm.
So this morning, instead of making my sales calls, I went to hold my great niece.
That's
and
awesome.
You know what? Sometimes you have to also realize that there is life outside of all the work. The phone calls will wait. You know what? My niece being 1 day old, this was my only opportunity to hold her when she was 1 day old. So that, and I don't let that happen very often. And by the same token, I also know that I don't do my business at the expense of my family.
Yeah, it's to enable you. I think this is a great time to bring up, I mentioned this a few times on this show, but I found an article in a newspaper. Actually, my stepdad, adopted dad, found it and cut it out, and I just love it, and I keep it, and I always actually look at it, and it's top regrets of the dying. So they surveyed these nurses that have worked in palliative care for over 40 years, and they try to get, what are the top regrets of people that are on their way out? And they came up with 5 things. The first one is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Next is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard, which is what you're saying. That would be a regret. I didn't get to hold my it's a great grandniece?
Great niece. My niece's daughter.
That's so awesome. To have 3 generations in one room, that's so awesome.
And she's perfect. She's just beautiful and perfect.
I know. So I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And I wish that I had let myself be happier. And, we only got one life. You don't really know where it's going. We don't, there's a lot of people making promises about what happens when it's done. And some people saying we get to do it again. But really all we know is there's a start and a middle, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so, I've lived poor and I've lived rich, and I definitely think I like having money better.
Oh, absolutely.
But that being said, like you said, there's more than just about work, and I love that. I love that a lot. So what are some of the habits that you've developed? Oh, sorry. What were you going to say, Lisa?
Oh, no, I was going to say, but the thing is that it's finding your passion. I never feel like I'm actually working. I mean, even if I'm making cold calls, the bane of the salesperson's existence, I still have fun with it. It's when you love what you do that much, it never feels like work. So when I was listening to the list that you just read, I'm feeling pretty good about it, because the one way that I've really focused on living my life is no regrets. I don't want to regret, not doing things. I take a lot of risks. I do a lot of things. I mean, I just go for it because the pain of regret is always worse than the pain of failure.
Right. You can suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, but you cannot avoid them both.
Right.
That's a quote
Yep,
that I love so
that.
much. But I mean, I'm fully on par with you. So do you feel that there's any habits that you've developed that have helped you be, I mean, you mentioned that you've got your sales calls in the morning. Do you have routines or rituals or habits that you felt you've developed that you can attribute to some of the success that you're having?
This is completely off of anything that we've been talking about, but my gratitude journal, the journal that before my feet hit the ground in the morning, that I take that journal and I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. I started doing that in 2009, and that's why my life is the way that it is today. I mean, and that's how I became a gratitude expert. That's why my employee engagement that I work with organizations is all based on creating a foundation of appreciation in the workplace. It all stems from that daily practice of looking for the good. And so I started my journaling practice, and it's 5 sentences. Okay. So don't get all weirded out by journaling. I'm grateful for 5 sentences, but it was a year almost to the day after that my position was eliminated via group conference call, like I said. And you think about the economy in 2010, not good. Okay. So I could have been like all the other people wallowing, handing out resumes like Texas Hold'em. Here, hire me, hire me, hire me, hire me. Or because I asked myself the question, what can I find to be grateful for in this situation? I knew that I was given an opportunity to do something I'd wanted to do for 20 years, and that was to become a professional speaker. So that gratitude practice of constantly looking for the good, it gets me through the challenges. It helps me pick up the phone because I can be grateful for successful calls. I can be grateful for the fact that I made calls. I can be grateful for the fact today that I went and held my niece instead of making calls. But that, I think above all else, that single practice of discipline of taking those 5 minutes first thing in the morning for me and setting the tone for my day has made a remarkable difference, just like it has with all the people that have been through my different programs. And I talk about the benefits of a gratitude journal and the ones that take my 30-day challenge of doing that, writing down 3 to 5 things a day for 30 days. It makes just a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah. Really changed my life.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be a testimonial for you, even though we've never done business together, in the fact that that's huge. It's so huge. I was reading about the power of positive thinking, I think it was last summer. And, some people, actually, there's even a new book that I've been reading now, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, How We Can Learn to Fulfill Our Potential. And a big thing, it's all about mindset, that there's people that are growth mindset and there's people that are fixed mindset. There's 2 types of mindset. And so the growth mindset, they look at failure as in like, oh, this is just now, it's not where I'm going to end up. But fixed people look at single events as defining, as like a static thing, like you either are, like and even the same thing, like we talk about the ups and downs as an entrepreneur, like you might land a 7-figure deal, but it doesn't mean you're successful. Like, all right, you did that. What are you going to do next? And so that mentality is huge. And I think I liken it to, when I lived in San Diego for a time, and I was driving on I think it was the I-5, and I was actually in Encinitas, headed into San Diego, and there was a car accident that happened literally right in front of me. These 3 cars, I don't even know what happened. One car was on the right, one car was on the left, and there was this other car was spinning. And like between the two, and I remember this car accident happened in front of me. I just see the puff of smoke. I see this car spinning, and I attribute this because I've been in martial arts. I attribute this to I just swerved around it. I literally had to make an S shape, like to get around all the cars. And I'm going 60, 80 miles an hour, right? Like, and after I was like, how? And it was almost like if I didn't, talk about getting into flow. That was a moment in my life where I felt like I was in flow for that second. And I think what you talk about being gratitude, it's like that. It's not that when you're grateful or you think positively that bad things don't happen. It's that you don't waste time and you don't create friction by looking at anything other than the exit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the exit in the way that you want to go, right? Because there might be 3 exits, but 2 of them might lead off a cliff, right? So anyway, I just think that's because some people are like, but that's all woo-foo thing, and and I agree.
It's not.
You can't close your eyes.
Not.
Yeah, you can't be like, there are no weeds. So gratitude is a huge thing. I know that that's been life-changing for me. Sincerely, it's a simple thing. Small hinges swing big doors. So
Right. Well, and I've done a boatload of research because when I first started keeping my journal and I noticed the impact that it had on me, I asked, well, is this just woo-woo fluffy stuff or is there more to it? And there is so much research. Actually, Berkeley, at the Greater Good Institute at Berkeley, boatloads of research. But, if you are thinking that this is, just fluffy spiritual stuff, do the research yourself. See the benefits of that people that keep a gratitude journal. They're 25% happier. They complain less often. They experience fewer physical ailments. They're more happy, joyful, and the people associated with them notice a difference. It's just, there's so much behind it, but if you never take the time to do it yourself, you'll never experience those benefits.
That's right. Yeah, hands down. So what do you see are some of the greatest mistakes you see your clients and other entrepreneurs making, whether it's trying to handle their employees or clients or trying to, maybe these are 3 separate questions, but I want to know, because you obviously have a wealth of experience. So I want to know what are kind of the biggest mistakes you see people making when it comes to dealing with their employees, dealing with clients, and then also approaching speaking as a career.
Well, dealing with employees is not showing them appreciation, not showing that they're contributing, that they're a valuable part of the organization. Simple things, saying thank you, being specific. What gets recognized gets repeated. And when they look at high-performing teams, there is a research study that shows on a high-performing team, it's a 6-to-1 positivity ratio. So for every one negative thing that person hears, they hear at least 6 positives. And I'm not saying positives like, oh, Johnny, you're so great. You're so great. Johnny, that idea, we can't really work with that specifically, one negative, but here's some of the good pieces of that maybe we can. Positive, positive, positive. So in communication with each other, we want to focus more on positive communication than negative. And like I said, thank you goes a long way. A lot of managers think that they don't have, why should I thank my employees? Isn't that what a paycheck's for?
No.
If you want them to do nothing more than what you're paying them for, then fine, look at it that way. But if you want that employee to give you their commitment, their loyalty, their blood, sweat, tears, then they will do that when they feel acknowledged by you. So in the workplace, it's really creating that level of engagement, that connection, that culture that makes your organization the one that people want to work for.
Well said.
What was the next question?
Well, I just was asking about how clients doing the same thing with them. So that's employees. But what are the biggest mistakes you see people? And because I mean, you talked about Grategies. So how do we apply gratitude to? And that was a great one for employees. How do we apply gratitude to with our clients? And then also just I guess some tips as president of the National Speaker Association for your chapter. Just some tips and strategies on the speaking career, I guess.
Well, the mistakes is giving up too soon. I guess, it's that persistence. I think that a mistake that people think when they're starting their own business, whether it be a speaking business or any business, is that they believe it's going to be much easier than it actually is. Because they look at one of their friends who's an entrepreneur or a speaker and they say, well, if that person can do it, man, I can do it too. Or, she makes $10,000 a speech, or she makes $20,000 a speech. Man, if she can do that, I could make 10 and I'd only have to speak once a month. No, you can't. So, and a couple of years ago, I had a conversation. I had a girlfriend, and her and I had both started our speaking business at the same time. And she has since left the business, gone back into corporate America. And I told her, I said, the only way that you can fail in this business is to quit. And she said, well, no, you don't always have a choice. I said,
Yes, you do.
always have a choice. You have a choice whether you're going to, move back into your parents' basement to save money to build a business. You have a choice whether you have to, we always have a choice. The thing is that most people don't make those difficult choices to proceed with their dream. Because the thing is, I always wanted to be the last person standing, of the person that persisted beyond what made sense for persisting. And that's when you can take it to the next level. When people are starting in business, as a speaking business, I kind of joke around, but not really. I say, okay, imagine the maximum amount of time and money that you think it's going to take to build a successful speaking business. And I'll give them a minute to process that. Okay, you got your numbers, the maximum that you think that'll take time and money. Okay, add a zero.
Add a zero. Yeah, add a zero. I was going to say double it, but add a zero is probably a better bet. Yeah, it's a safer bet. Yeah. And that's where you just have to be, I just love the whole concept. That's even part of why I want to do the interview, because you have to approach it all with a feeling and sense of gratitude. You have to be grateful and appreciate what you're doing. You have to be grateful that you get to do what you do. Because at any point, if you're not loving this, like I know everybody, like there's people selling get-rich-quick schemes and, kick it on the beach of, click a button and money flies in your bank account. And I've done it. I've built automated marketing campaigns that have done millions of dollars, that have only needed a few staff. And I'm telling you, it's really hard to fake that stuff if there's no passion in it. Like passion is a mandatory ingredient. And yeah, we built that, but it was also built on the back of, having a proven market and a proven product and someone that was passionate about helping those people. If I just tried to slap some stuff together and set it up and write some scammy, persuasive words that are going to hypnotize you, like it just wouldn't work. It would not work. It would not work. I mean, again, I just love what you said because it's gratitude such an important part in that mindset. And again, it's the same life, same hours that's spent in the day, just like the money. It's just spent differently, just used a little differently, just a little tweak, make radical difference. So now, I guess, so well, you kind of already gave the best advice for speaking to add a zero. I was going to be like, what's the best advice for a speaker? But that was it, really. Like,
well, you know what? And actually, if you want to speak more, and actually there's a book in the NSA, and this is a saying, but if you want to speak more, you speak more. What that means is at the beginning, I probably spoke for 2 years before I got paid the first time. I spoke for every Kiwanis, every Rotary, every chamber, because what I was doing was seeing what resonates with people, what doesn't resonate with people. Build your skills, because if you're going to have somebody pay you money, you have to be worth that money. Because if you're not worth it, word will spread and you will never get hired again.
Yep.
Join Toastmasters. Get your skills down so that when you can put together a story, you can see the humor. But the thing is, at the beginning, the question is not, I won a Toastmaster contest once, how do I get paid to speak? No, the thing is to speak often enough and get good enough so that the end of one of your free speeches, somebody walks up to you and says, wow, that was awesome. How much would you charge me to come to my organization? And then you start to have, well, what is that dollar? And people will say, well, what fee should I say? And I always say, it's the fee that you can say without choking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's whatever you can look them in the face and not blink and say, yeah.
And know too that you have the talent to give that level. Right. You're not going to go and say right off the bat, well, $10,000 because I can say that without choking, but then you give a horrible speech because it's your first one ever. No, we build up to that, and we build up to that by getting in front of people over and over and over again.
Right, which comes back to the confidence, right, and sales and being passionate, and then that's what we mean, not just because you can bluff and play poker, but because you've got the confidence and the faith in what you provide and the value that it can produce for someone, that's why you can say that price and look them blank in the face. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a good, thank you for adding that, because it might give the wrong impression. Sometimes I take things for granted, like especially because I'm a marketer, I'm so focused on marketing and sales. It's a given that you got to have a quality product. You have, especially in today where social media and it's so, like, news travels so fast. You can't hide any. Like, you can't hide, like, some of the guys that are teaching how to do things, would have decimated themselves if they had social media and things like YouTube around today, because they could just travel. They get on a plane, fly somewhere to a new country or a new state or whatever, and leave that behind them. But you can't today. It follows you everywhere. So you have to have world class. And again, it comes back to being passionate about who you're trying to help. And and the industry that you're in, and maybe making boxes isn't the best industry, but if you can get in touch with who your customers are, and you can become passionate about their lives and their challenges and their problems, and like servitude. I just came back from Asia, and I feel like we have lost in North America. We have lost the culture of service in this culture to such a huge extent. I mean. And I don't know if we have time. This is your interview. I'm sorry if I keep going for rants, because it's supposed to be your interview, and I'm like, da, da, da. But I just think that that's such an important, it's just so important. It's about service. It's about having fun and finding passion in that. I don't know.
Well, but the thing is, when it comes to service, see, that's what differentiates you. I had the program that I did yesterday. I was the opening keynote, and I applied or was asked to speak for the same organization 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember, but they were looking at a couple different speakers. I was one of them. They did not choose me. And I don't even remember it, but that's my practice. I sent her a thank you note, and I said, well, thank you for considering me for this opportunity, and I'd love to work with you in the future, something like that. And I don't even remember sending it. But the woman came up to me after the program yesterday, and she said, when we were looking at you a couple years ago, along with the other speakers, and even though we chose to go a different direction with a different speaker, You were the only speaker that sent us a thank you note for not hiring you, and that's why you're here today. So when you can go, the fact that service is lacking in this country, that becomes a point of differentiation. Give the very best service that you can possibly give, and you will stand out so far above your competitors that they won't have any way to compete with you, because you're the one that is giving and giving and giving,
right,
and getting the benefits of that return.
Yep. I agree 1,000-fold, 1,000%. Just, yeah, I mean, because people want value, people want to be cared for, and nowadays people don't want to work. A lot of people don't want to work. So, and for the people that are feeling that this sounds like a lot of work, I want to emphasize something that we haven't quite, we touched on it, but business is about building teams as well. That's something to think as well. Like when you quote someone a price on something, it's not just money you're getting, it's the money it costs to get the job done. And to do it well and to do it right and to do it where nobody is looking to cut corners or do a half-assed job or, get a job elsewhere because it's going to pay better. It's like, hey, this is what it's going to cost to have everybody do it and have everyone feel like properly compensated and to do it, thoroughly to the end. And that's something to consider as well. Because when you're an entrepreneur, the business owner, and I think this is a hard lesson for a lot of people to get. I love this. We had a guest and a friend of mine. He did this on the call, and I've been doing this for him. Is Brad Martineau. Hold on, definition. I always love looking this up. But when you look up the meaning of entrepreneur, it says a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses. What it doesn't say is the person who answers the phone, mops the floors, does the bookkeeping, right? Does the sales calls, delivers the product, does the graphic design, does the social media. Like, that's not how it works. And so that's when you're pricing, well, how much do I charge? You have to incorporate that into it. It's about the team. So, and that gratitude thing I think is so important, because also a lot of entrepreneurs struggle. Like, that's a big lesson itself. A lot of entrepreneurs are not necessarily team players. They can be, but it's not always the case, right? They're more solo workers. That's why they're entrepreneurs. It's a certain respect, as opposed to, because if they were followers in any respect, and not that to be on a team you have to be a follower, but they'd be more likely to join and partner with somebody else in something, right? To be an employee or to be a shareholder in something. But if you're like a self-employed or a freelancer or you're staking it out on your own, you tend to want to do it your own, and then you forget to give other people credit and recognition, and people crave recognition more than money. And so that point that you made, I think, is really valuable. Hold on. I actually wrote this down because I loved how you said it. You said what gets recognized gets repeated. And I think that's really, really, really important. It doesn't mean people don't make mistakes, but it definitely shows where your focus should be.
Right. And the thing is that goes either way. When you recognize bad behavior, you get more of that too. So when you're recognizing good behavior, be very specific. Instead of just saying something like, hey, great job. Thank you so much for spending that extra 20 minutes with Mrs. Smith taking care of her problem. You handled it beautifully, whatever it is. But that's how people know that you're paying attention, because you're being specific in your praise.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's not like general, like, great job. It's like, hey, you did a great job when you did this instead of this, and how because now it's so specific. Like, I love that. Again, you notice them, you recognize them. There's that recognition again. So that's awesome. Lisa, I love, this is great. So where do you see the future trends of the industry going as far as speaking and I guess, in general, where do you see the future of it going?
Well, there's so much opportunity. Back in the day, the National Speakers Association used to be all about keynoters. It was all about, the keynote speaker, the well-paid keynote speaker. And you really don't see that. There's very few people that make their living 100% from keynotes. We're now looking at, the TED style of talking, 7 minutes to 18 minutes because of our shorter attention spans. We're looking at a lot more opportunities to use technology like Zoom and have webinars and different opportunities to connect with people face to face, so it feels like you're sitting in the same room with them, and you can do programs that way. I've had speakers that haven't been able to make it to an engagement, and they will do a presentation via an online connection. So we're open to technology, and I will tell you, and I was going to say this a little bit earlier, but if you're starting a speaking business, make sure that you have a website. Start getting video. Even if you're speaking at a chamber talk or a free talk, set up your iPhone in the back of the room and capture it, because People are going to check you out. Every person that calls me for a speaking engagement, the first words out of their mouth is, "Oh, I just watched your video. I thought that you'd be the perfect fit for this." They've already checked you out. So if they go and they can't find anything about you, or you have crappy video online, you're not going to get hired. So make sure that what you're putting out there, that number one, you're putting content out there, write blogs, have some kind of weekly connection, some kind of weekly video, do things to just get good content out there. Even from a publishing standpoint, so many platforms that you can self-publish or use Vanity Press or do like hybrid publishing, but get your book out there. Again, building the credibility that you have. And the key is that we have so many different options now, being open to them, but again, coming back to the ones that work the best for you. I have a biz TV show. I have episodes that come out twice a month. I do some things with video. I generally capture. I have a new website that I'm working on right now on reformatting it. But the website that I have now, it's fine. It's been doing well, and now I've had this website for probably 3 years or so. It's time for the next upgrade.
Right, but at least you've got, I forgot to mention this before, but I always say this is the thing a monk will never tell you, is that movement is better than meditation. Because at least if you make some movement, you'll get feedback, whether it's good or bad, and then you'll know how to adjust, and you'll keep moving forward. But if you sit there meditating, you'll never know. So this website's been great, but like I say, now it's time to update it. But guess what? You have a ton of data. You've got, you know what I mean? You've taken out, what you do like, what you don't like, what you wish your site did, and you know what I mean? So that's a great key point. And I think that it's true. It's amazing. And people don't even understand. I think it's hard for us to predict where the future is going to be in 10 years, but it definitely gives us a point in the right direction because we're all so connected right now. There's no reason why we can't continue a conversation. You're in a room talking with someone. Yesterday I was in a room talking with my cousins and I went to take the dog out for a walk. We carried on the conversation because we had a group chat on Skype or on Facebook. And so I'm sending them video and audio, and the conversation didn't end even though I physically left the room. So it makes sense that they would use things like webinars and video conferences and things like that. And that's kind of how it's leveling the playing field, I guess. And then information is, I guess the floor in information has dropped out. Like, information is cheap, but it's the implementation. So I guess when you get these speaking gigs for corporate, it's like, what can you do for them? You're not just going to come in and talk. You're going to motivate people to do something. You're going to help implement it. It sounds like even with you have a 30-day challenge. You have an implemented strategy. I'm going to come in, talk to your team. We're going to do X to produce Y result.
Right. And that's what they want. They want actionable ideas. You're not seeing a whole lot anymore of the pure motivational keynote, of all the fluff. It's entertaining, but meeting planners want that lasting effect. They also want a lot more engagement and audience interaction. We're not sitting there and just listening to the sage on the stage anymore for an hour. You're seeing a lot more interactivity when it comes to keynotes as well. One thing I started doing about a year ago that's paid off huge is I stopped using PowerPoint in my presentation because I figured, and how I tell that to the meeting planners, because I figure, number one, these people are sitting through 3 days of PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint, and I come in without one and it's like, woohoo, this is awesome. Because I tell the meeting planners, when you have PowerPoint, the program goes in the order that the slides dictate. If you don't have PowerPoint, it goes in the order of the conversation the audience is looking to have.
Right. I love that. Yeah, it's become a two-way conversation. And if anything, that's what all these tools we've developed have done, have enabled us to communicate better. So it almost sounds like where people are like, oh, I wish I didn't have to talk to my customers and I could just sit on a beach and get drunk and sit in the sun and get fat and die of obesity and diabetes and heart disease. Really, you should be leaning in the other way, using communication tools to stay more engaged with your customers and get more direct feedback. Because that's stuff that you may have to do manually in the beginning, but at a certain point, what's his name? Claude Hopkins wrote a great book, Scientific Advertising. It's a great book. It's a must-read for anyone that's in business or in advertising. And one of the things he says in there is, let the thousands tell you what the millions will do. So I think by leaning in and having more conversations and more engagement with your customers, you'll find out that there's not 1,000 things that people are having issues with. Eventually you'll be able to categorize it and then delegate it, and build a system and a process and then have somebody else step in and take it over. But that will give you an upper hand over your competitors that are kind of like, that aren't leaning on the service side, like we mentioned. So I think this is great tips. We covered a lot of stuff here. We covered stuff from starting up, whether you're starting or launching a new product. We covered about how to basically keep morale, and not even morale, but buy-in from your team on your company, like in your company, and keep them tied to results. How to encourage to get more of what you want from your team members. How to keep your key clients in place. Talking about service and showing gratitude, and how to have that be your key differentiator. We also talked about getting the reality of speaking today, and that really anyone can be a speaker. If you have a mouth, you can be a speaker. And so what's different is how you use it. How are you trying to boast yourself up and be, I'm so great, or do you really come from a place of servitude and knowing the pain points people have? Can you be grateful, and are you passionate about what you do? Because that shines through and people can resonate that. Authenticity, it doesn't take a whole day to recognize sunshine. You know what I mean? So I think when people are authentic and use these tools, that it really, really does shine through. So Lisa, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you, or that we didn't cover that you wanted to share?
Not really. I mean, we really covered a lot. I think that if people would like to get, on my website, I have a gratitude thought of the week, which I like to refer to as a short inspirational message that seems to show up when you need it. It comes out on Thursdays.
I love that.
But that's at my website at grategy.com, which is GRATEGY.com. And you just sign up and that will start coming. But it's really, I think out of everything, it has to start with us, of what is our passion, what do we love to do, what do we do that makes time fly by, and put that into a terms that businesses will pay for so that we can build a sustainable business out of it.
I love that. And that's so well said. So well said. Lisa, I'm so grateful for you coming here and sharing with all of us today. What's the URL one more time?
Grategy, GRATEGY.com, as in gratitude strategy.
Got it. Grategy.com. So obviously, Lisa knows what she's talking about. She's been in this game a long, long time. If you have issues with employee engagement, or you want to try to keep your customers, if you have an issue keeping customers as long as you think you could, or fighting off competitors to have your customers choose you over them, or if you're involved in speaking and need some tips and tricks in that, please go check out Lisa's website at grategy.com. And I would honestly just encourage you to go check it out anyways, because gratitude, I mean, I love that it's a daily gratitude thing. Religion's borrowed that forever, to have a morning prayer. I mean, that's been the secret. It's not, there's no magic to it that's beyond just that. It's that programming your mind. So I think that's a really powerful message. And I'm just very grateful, Lisa, that you took some time out of your schedule and from your family, obviously, the growing family you have, to be and share with myself and my audience today. So thank you on behalf of them and myself for your time and for sharing and for just being open like that.
You are very welcome.
You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give to them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.